before fertilizer bags filled store shelves, before soil wore out and crops struggled. There was a humble crop that quietly worked its magic for free. It fed the soil, saved farmers money, and kept gardens fertile for generations. Yet, somewhere along the way, we stopped planting it. Today, we're uncovering this forgotten secret from the past, a simple, natural way to restore your garden's health, boost yields, and honor the wisdom of those who grew food before chemicals. Get ready to bring life back to your soil the old-fashioned way. Gardens didn't always need chemicals. There was a time when gardens didn't need bags of fertilizer or shelves stacked with synthetic solutions. Back then, farmers and gardeners relied on simple, time-tested practices that worked with nature instead of against it. Soil wasn't just dirt to be used and discarded, it was alive, a living partner in the cycle of growth. And those who understood this secret tended to gardens that seemed to thrive effortlessly, year after year. Our grandparents had a kind of wisdom that modern farming often overlooks. They knew that the secret to healthy crops wasn't a chemical shortcut. It was healthy soil. They understood that if the land was nourished and respected, it would, in turn, provide abundantly. Every plant, every root, every leaf benefited from the unseen life beneath the surface. Soil teeming with microbes, enriched by nature's own processes, created a foundation so strong that crops seemed to almost grow themselves. And here's the thing. They didn't just feed the people, they fed the land itself. They planted cover crops, rotated crops, and used organic matter not just to fill the soil, but to enrich it. Green manures, legumes, and other humble plants weren't seen as optional, they were essential. These crops restored nutrients, prevented erosion, and kept the garden fertile for the next season. A simple bean, clover, or mustard plant might have seemed ordinary, but it carried a power modern gardeners often overlook. It wasn't about chemicals or quick results. It was about patience, respect, and understanding the rhythms of nature. Grandparents walked their fields, observed the soil, noticed the bugs, and learned from every season. They celebrated frugality, not because they had to, but because they saw the value in letting the land provide naturally. A handful of seeds, a little care, and a season's worth of sunlight and rain were all that was needed to keep gardens thriving for decades. Think about that for a moment. Today, we reach for fertilizer, thinking it's the only way to grow strong, healthy crops. But the truth is, we've forgotten a method that was both simple and sustainable. Healthy soil doesn't just make plants grow, it makes a garden resilient, saves money, and creates a cycle that benefits both the gardener and the land. It's a lesson in patience, stewardship, and connection with the earth. In this chapter, we're not just reminiscing about the past, we're learning from it. By understanding how gardens once thrived without chemicals, we can reconnect with practices that bring life back to our soil, restore fertility naturally, and grow food that is not only abundant, but deeply nourishing. The wisdom of our grandparents isn't outdated. It's a blueprint for sustainable, thriving gardens. So as we move forward, remember this. A healthy garden begins from the ground up, with soil that is alive, cared for, and respected. Feed the land, and it will feed you in return. Meet the forgotten crop. Not all heroes are flashy. Some work quietly, steadily, and without applause. This forgotten crop was one of those heroes. It didn't promise instant results or quick rewards. There were no glowing advertisements, no fancy packages in the garden store. Yet, season after season, it performed a quiet miracle, rebuilding the soil, strengthening the land, and giving life where it had grown tired. What made this crop so remarkable wasn't just what it produced above the ground, but what it did beneath the surface. Its roots reached deep, exploring the soil, breaking up compacted layers, and creating channels for water and air. It worked hand in hand with nature, forming partnerships with tiny microbes, bacteria, and fungi that dwell in the soil. Together, they transformed what was once ordinary, exhausted dirt into a rich, thriving foundation capable of supporting healthy, abundant crops. For generations, farmers understood the value of this practice. They planted it after a harvest, during the quiet months when fields might otherwise sit bare. They didn't plant it to sell, and they didn't plant it for instant gratification. They planted it to give back to the land, to repay the soil for the crops it had produced. And in doing so, They ensured that the garden or field would remain fertile for decades, not just for a single season. Think about that for a moment. In a world that prizes speed and immediate results, this crop thrived in patience. It didn't rush. It didn't compete. It quietly enriched the land, often going unnoticed by the casual observer, yet performing one of the most vital jobs in agriculture. Without it, soil would tire, yields would fall, and farmers would have to rely on expensive inputs to keep production going. But with it, soil stayed alive. Nutrients returned naturally. Gardens remained resilient. And the beauty of it? Anyone could use it. It didn't require complicated tools, chemical fertilizers, or technical expertise. Just a willingness to work with nature. Plant the right seeds at the right time, and allow the season to do its work. For older gardeners especially, this is empowering. It's proof that even with simple means, you can restore soil, grow lush crops, and honor the wisdom of those who came before. The lessons of this forgotten crop go beyond the garden. They teach us patience, stewardship, and respect for life that is unseen. They remind us that growth isn't always immediate, but when nurtured carefully, it is enduring. Soil, like life, thrives when it's treated well, given time, and allowed to rebuild. Next, we'll explore exactly how to plant this crop, what benefits it brings to your soil, and why modern gardeners can't afford to ignore it. Because bringing this forgotten hero back isn't just a nod to the past, it's a way to secure healthier, more fertile gardens for the future. How it made soil fertile naturally. Here's where the magic happens. This forgotten crop wasn't just a plant. It was a partner in a quiet, underground miracle that few people truly understood. Beneath the surface, tiny organisms, microbes, fungi, and bacteria were hard at work. These invisible helpers take air, water, and sunlight and turn them into nutrients that plants can actually use. Healthy soil is full of life, and this humble crop knew exactly how to nurture it. Instead of stripping the soil of its goodness, this crop returned it. Its roots grew deep, breaking up compacted dirt and creating tunnels that allowed air and water to reach all corners of the soil. As it grew, it captured nitrogen from the air, enriched the ground, and left behind organic matter when it died or was tilled under. Essentially, it acted like a natural fertilizer, without the cost, chemicals, or environmental damage. Season after season, it built layers of fertility. The more it grew, the richer the soil became. Farmers noticed their crops grew stronger, more resilient, and more abundant. They didn't have to fight the soil or force it to give. They worked with it. And in return, the soil rewarded them. This wasn't luck. It was wisdom. Simple, patient, and highly effective wisdom that modern shortcuts often overlook. The beauty of this process is how accessible it is. You don't need expensive inputs, machines, or complicated techniques. All you need is an understanding of timing. Plant it after harvest. Let it grow through the season. Then either leave it to decompose naturally or till it gently into the soil. Over time, your garden becomes self-sustaining, healthy, and resilient. And here's something seniors and experienced gardeners will appreciate. It's forgiving. You don't have to do it perfectly to see results. The soil itself does most of the work if given a chance. Every root that grows, every microbe it nourishes, contributes to a cycle that benefits your garden not just this year, but for many seasons to come. In other words, you're planting for the future while enjoying the fruits of the present. No fertilizers, no chemicals, no extra costs, just patience, observation, and the wisdom to let nature do what it has done for centuries. In a world where instant results are celebrated, this crop teaches a valuable lesson: growth, sustainability, and abundance come when we respect the cycles of life beneath our feet. So, the next time you walk through a garden or a field, remember this: fertility isn't something you buy, it's something you grow. And by planting this forgotten crop, you're not just feeding the soil, you're restoring a tradition, nurturing life, and bringing back a simple, powerful way to grow healthy, abundant crops naturally. Why it disappeared? So why did this remarkable crop vanish from our fields and gardens? Why did a plant that quietly enriched soil, saved money, and nourished the land for generations get pushed aside? The answer is both simple and heartbreaking. It didn't fit the new system. As agriculture modernized, speed became king. Machines, chemical fertilizers, and genetically optimized crops promised instant results, bigger harvests, and easier profits. In that race for efficiency, patience, the very trait this crop thrived on, was overlooked. It couldn't be rushed. It didn't produce immediate cash, and it certainly didn't come in a neat bag with a bright label promising miraculous results. To the modern eye, it looked old-fashioned, slow, and unprofitable. Farmers and gardeners, pressed by deadlines, rising costs, and the lure of quick solutions, gradually abandoned it. Fields that once hummed with life during the off-season were left bare. The soil that had been nurtured and strengthened over generations began to weaken. Yields may have increased in the short term, but the long-term health of the land suffered. Nature, which this crop had honored and partnered with, was slowly pushed aside in favor of synthetic shortcuts. And slowly, quietly, this helper was forgotten. Generations grew up unaware of its benefits, never learning the secret of soil that heals itself. It became a memory whispered by older gardeners and farmers, a tale of what once worked so well that we now struggle to replicate. Many of us look at modern fields and gardens, abundant at first glance, yet fail to see the cracks beneath, the soil slowly losing its strength, the fertility slowly declining, and the resilience fading. Yet, the story doesn't have to end here. Understanding why this crop disappeared teaches us something vital. Not all progress is true progress. Some shortcuts come at a cost, and some losses, though subtle, can change the foundation of our work forever. This crop wasn't just a plant. It was a lesson in patience, stewardship, and long-term thinking. Its absence reminds us that nature works on its own schedule, and if we ignore that rhythm, even the most fertile land can grow tired. The good news is that it can return. The wisdom of planting, nurturing, and respecting. This humble crop hasn't disappeared completely. It lives on in the knowledge of older gardeners, in historical practices, and in the soil itself. And by bringing it back, we aren't just restoring gardens. We're restoring a connection to the land, to our heritage, and to the simple, powerful cycles that made agriculture sustainable for centuries. For many older gardeners, this forgotten crop isn't just a piece of agricultural history. It's a memory. It brings back moments of quiet observation, of learning from the rhythms of the land, and of understanding the gentle wisdom of nature. Perhaps your parents planted it in the backyard garden, carefully sowing it after the main harvest. Perhaps you watched it grow quietly through the season, its roots digging deep, unseen but doing essential work. Maybe you even saw it at the end of the season, turned gently into the soil, seemingly unremarkable, but incredibly powerful. It wasn't flashy. It didn't promise a spectacular harvest on its own. It didn't produce fruits or flowers to catch the eye. And yet, it worked in ways that modern shortcuts often fail to replicate. It reminded gardeners, young and old alike, that the most important work often happens out of sight. The life beneath the surface, the soil itself, was where growth, strength, and abundance really began. And this humble crop made that connection visible, if only for those patient enough to notice. For seniors who remember it, this crop is tied to lessons that went far beyond gardening. It taught stewardship, patience, and foresight. It taught that the land gives back, not immediately, not on demand, but faithfully, when it is cared for. Planting it was more than a practical choice. It was a lesson in respect, a way of passing knowledge from one generation to the next, watching it grow season after season, observing the soil's gradual renewal, instilled an understanding that some rewards take time, and that tending to something quietly, without immediate recognition, can yield extraordinary results. There's also a sense of nostalgia in remembering it. It connects us to family gardens, to grandparents who walked the fields with hands in the soil, and to a way of life where work was intertwined with patience and love for the land. For older gardeners, thinking of this crop is like thinking of a mentor who never spoke loudly but taught profoundly. It reminds us that abundance is not just measured in immediate yield, but in resilience, sustainability, and the quiet strength that builds over time. Even more importantly, it reminds us that this knowledge is not lost. The wisdom of older gardeners, the memory of how this crop nourished the soil, and the principles it teaches are all still here. And that means it can come back. Seniors can pass this knowledge down, teaching younger gardeners to plant, nurture, and respect the cycles of life beneath our feet. In doing so, they ensure that soil, gardens, and communities thrive, not just for a single season, but for generations to come. So when you think of this forgotten crop, don't just remember it as a plant. Remember it as a teacher. Remember it as a bridge between generations. Remember the lesson it carries. The land gives back, abundantly and faithfully, when we take care of it. Why it matters today more than ever. Gardens today face challenges that our grandparents could hardly imagine. Soil that was once rich and resilient now shows signs of fatigue. Fertilizer prices rise every season, and modern shortcuts often promise quick results but leave long-term problems in their wake. Weather patterns are less predictable, and many gardeners, especially older ones, wonder how to maintain healthy, abundant gardens without spending a fortune or relying on chemicals. This is why bringing back the forgotten crop matters more than ever. It's not just a nod to the past, it's a practical solution for the present and the future. By planting it, you're not only saving money on expensive fertilizers, you're investing in soil that regenerates itself naturally. Each season, the soil grows stronger, richer, and more capable of supporting healthy plants. It's a way of working smarter, not harder, and letting nature do much of the heavy lifting. Think about the benefits. Healthier soil means stronger, more resilient crops that can withstand pests, droughts, and changing weather. It means gardens that produce consistently year after year, without the constant need for chemical inputs. It means a cycle of growth that sustains itself, reducing costs, labor, and frustration while giving you better results. But the benefits go beyond the garden. Planting this crop is a way of passing down wisdom, not problems. It reconnects us with a tradition of care, patience, and respect for the land. It reminds younger gardeners and ourselves that real progress is not always about moving faster or using more technology. Sometimes, progress is remembering what worked, understanding the rhythm of nature, and honoring practices that have been proven over generations. For seniors, this carries a special power. You carry the memory, the experience, and the understanding of gardens that once thrived naturally. By reintroducing this crop, you become a bridge between generations, teaching younger gardeners to respect the soil, save money, and grow food sustainably. You're not just gardening, you're mentoring, preserving a legacy, and ensuring that the land continues to give back faithfully for years to come. And there's hope in that, even in soil that seems tired or depleted. The principles this crop teaches can restore life. You don't need expensive machinery or complicated techniques, just seeds, patience, and a willingness to let nature do what it has always done best. Each planting is an act of care, an investment in the health of your garden, and a step toward abundance that lasts. Sometimes, moving forward doesn't mean inventing something new. Sometimes, it means looking back, remembering what worked, and applying it wisely today. As we bring this story full circle, one thing is clear: the wisdom of the past still matters today. That humble, forgotten crop wasn't just a plant. It was a teacher, a helper, and a reminder of what patience, care, and respect for the land can achieve. It quietly rebuilt soil, strengthened gardens, and saved generations of farmers and gardeners money, time, and effort. And though it was almost forgotten, its lessons are still alive, and they can work for your garden today. If you believe the old ways still have value, hit like. Show that you honor the wisdom that came before us, and that you recognize the power of nature working alongside us. Quietly but effectively. Your like isn't just a click, it's a vote for sustainable gardening, for respecting the cycles of the land, and for remembering that true abundance comes from patience and care, not shortcuts. If you remember this crop, or maybe your parents or grandparents used it, leave a comment below. Share your story, your memory, or even a small lesson you learned from watching it grow. Did it teach you about patience? About frugality? About the quiet power of letting the soil work its magic? Your experience is valuable, and by sharing it, you help keep this knowledge alive for the next generation. Comments don't just engage, they connect us, turning this video from a lesson into a conversation that spans time and generations. And don't keep this secret to yourself. Share this video with someone who still believes that good soil makes a good life. Share it with your children, grandchildren, neighbors, or fellow gardeners who might have forgotten or never learned this simple, powerful method. Every share spreads more than information. It spreads hope, sustainability, and the kind of wisdom that keeps gardens, families, and communities thriving for years to come. Because some secrets were never meant to be forgotten, this crop reminds us that true progress isn't always about new technology or expensive inputs. Sometimes, it's about honoring what worked before, listening to the lessons that nature quietly teaches, and taking the time to do things the right way. That's the power of this forgotten hero. It's more than soil, it's resilience, sustainability, and a bridge between generations. So, take a moment today. Hit like if you value the old ways. Leave a comment if you've seen this crop in action, or if it lives in your memories. And share this video with someone who will appreciate the gift of knowledge that grows quietly beneath the surface. Together, we can bring back practices that honor the earth, empower gardeners, and ensure that the soil and the wisdom it holds thrives once again. Remember, every small act counts. Every seed sown, every memory shared, every lesson passed down. It all adds up to a garden that's stronger, healthier, and full of life. Let's keep this secret alive. Let's plant it, nurture it, and watch it transform our gardens and our lives, just as it did for generations before us.